So this is a Majjhima Nikaya 82, and I'll just read out this discussion that's happening between Venerable Raṭṭhapāla and a certain king at the time. And this king describes 4 kinds of loss that a person can go through, and then on account of that would ordain as a monk, go forth as a holy man. But he points out that Venerable Raṭṭhapāla has not experienced those losses, so why has he ordained? And he replies, I went forth because he understood these 4 summaries of the Dhamma taught by the Buddha.
What were the 4 losses?
Oh, the four losses that the king says people go forth for is loss of youth. So when they're old, they've got nothing more to do. They loss of health, they get sick, loss of wealth, and loss of relatives. So, and Venerable Raṭṭhapāla describes why he went forth on account of these 4 summaries of the Dhamma. Number 1 is life in any world is unstable, which kind of relates to that aging. Things are aging, things are falling apart.
Well, yeah, but I mean unstable in a sense. Yeah, you don't need to. Your old age is not guaranteed. You may not live that long. So as we said so many times before, I don't know from what book that quote is, but as soon as you're born, you're old enough to die. I think Heidegger was quoting it from somebody else, if I remember correctly. The point is, as soon as there is a manifestation, the implication of death is there at any given time. The implication of cessation. So whether you're 10, 20, 60-year-old, doesn't matter, that implication is there. And if somebody becomes aware of that, you realize, oh yeah, no, that is the reality. So life is unstable. So that whole Hindu idea of 4 stages of life, whereby the only last stage is when you go forth, and that's how you get most of the whole life. It's completely based on these assumptions that you will reach the old age, and that your faculties will be working in the old age, and you won't be kind of affected by illness and so on. It's just basically a worldly idea of trying to squeeze as much as they can out of sensuality and then go and practice the holy life, failing to understand that the longer you stay not practicing the holy life, the more of a burden you accumulate. So if you were not able to go against the grain and give up the burden when there wasn't so much burden accumulated, you're not going to be able to do it when you were 60 with a lot of burden in your mind and I mean burden in terms of attachments, habits, views, assumptions, control, sense of mastery, sense of mind, all of that proliferates. It's not a static thing.
The habits.
The habits,
ferment, proliferate.
Yeah, even these small mundane habits are quite a lot for people, but let alone, the ones that your kind of life depends on. So understanding that life is unstable in itself is more than enough to try and do something about it, if you truly understand the weight of that instability.
Yeah, that aging is already, you're already aged.
Well, exactly, yeah. Aging is not when you turn 60, aging is already this. And so you are already aging, and you are already heading towards that disintegration of the aggregates, and it's not guaranteed that you're going to see the 80, 90-year-old age or something, because manifestation is there means possibility of death is there.
But it feels like I am.
Exactly.
I'm a good guy.
Exactly. So
I'm going to live a long life.
Using feelings instead of discernment is a very perilous game.
Yes, so putting off these things that you know.
Which you already know.
I need to sort this out. I'll do it later.
I'll do it later. Yeah. Let me get the most out of this. Yeah, and that's Mara talking.
And this second summary of the Dhamma that he heard is life in any world has no shelter and no protector. And that seems to relate to the illness.
Yeah, well, safety. That's like, when the Buddha compares it, like you should not allow your consciousness to rest upon anything as a safe space, safe place, because it isn't. The only safe place is complete cessation and dispassion and abandoning of everything, this life, everything. Humanity, love, attachments, things that are dear to you, all of that is a trap. So that's what the Buddha was actually teaching. Very different from what people think the Buddha was teaching, world peace and loving kindness and so on.
The one mind is safe.
Yeah, nothing is safe. Like compare consciousness to the whip, like being hit with a whip.
With the spears.
With the spears. The spears. The contact was a whip. Similar to a whip. Yeah, so each time your consciousness gets established upon something, you should regard it as being struck with a spear, because that's the peril of it. So there's truly nothing to regard as suitable to rest upon.
No safety.
No safety. The only safety is that cessation of ownership, complete removal of this passion, and pretty much any appreciation of life or anything within it. It needs to be abandoned. So disenchantment, revulsion, all those things the Buddha was describing.
So you can try and be.
So that the mind turns away and completely lets go of any need for safety. Because need for safety is based on the wrong assumptions. It's based on the sense of ownership, sense of I am, sense of mine, thus the need to protect what's mine, need to find a safe space for what's mine, where it will be safe. But see, so for as long as you're seeking some safety, you're implying some ownership of something you want to be safe. And thus, you won't be safe because of that very thing.
It's vulnerability.
Yeah, exactly.
So you are vulnerable because you take things as...
Well, you take things that are not yours, as yours. So you're in debt, you're vulnerable. Mara has access to you.
And the third summary, life in any world has nothing of its own. One has to leave all and pass on. So accumulation of wealth.
Well, wealth, ownership, pretty much of every kind.
Have you ever gained it, really?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Have you ever secured it?
Well, like again, even like, this is mine. Remember, I think we spoke about it a while ago in one of the talks. Like even the notion of things that belong to you. You don't need to start, breaking them with a hammer to prove that you're not the owner. Just make the effort and understand what do you mean, like for yourself, when you say, oh, this item, this is mine, this belongs to me. What does that belonging entail? Like, how does it feel in a way? Like, what is it as a phenomena, that belonging of something to you? Does that mean you're in its control? Does it mean you're its creator? Does that mean it cannot be taken away? What does that ownership imply? And you realize that that's the trick of the ownership, is the power of the ownership is the people don't think about it. You just kind of skate on top of it, take it for granted. Oh, mine. But even without any Buddhist practice, if a mind would just stop and think about, like, what does it mean when something is mine? Like, how would I describe that? What are the properties of that? And then you realize a contradiction in terms. And certainly it would help you not take things that are yours so much as yours. They wouldn't be as much yours, let's say like that. Because you realize, well, yeah, the notion of mine, it's quite relative. It's mine for as long as that thing is there, but I have no fundamental say in that. Or it's mine for as long as I'm there, but I have no fundamental say in that. So then, okay, it's relatively mine, as in I'm the current user of it.
Well, then if you do...
But people don't. But by not thinking about that, what does mine mean, they do take it in that kind of infinite sense. That's why always that infinite threat of when something mine is threatened to be taken away. Even if you stop and think about it, actually I don't care much about it, but I care that mine is attacked. that mine is under a threat, because I never question the notion of mine, and I take it in an infinite sense, ultimate sense, that mine means mine forever and must stay and be protected that way. And that's even even further contradiction. Because if it were yours, you wouldn't need to protect it. If it were in your control, it would not be under any threat. It could not be under a threat. If you were the master of its existence, it would listen only to you. But none of that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yet people go around with the attitude, mine belongs to me.
And that's how you can only, it's the way, that's where passion is. You can't have passion for something if it's not really yours.
Exactly.
It doesn't really matter, it's gone. Well,
Well, that's, if you start questioning that notion of mine, you are already narrowing down, I suppose you could say, the basis for proliferation of passion. So you are diminishing passion, that in simple terms.
Mm-hmm.
By questioning the notion of mind, you are diminishing passion.
And you will be not unlikely to be trying to get things,
or not as much.
Striving really hard to get to.
Not be as gripped by that kind of blind ambition without any context of its ultimate relativity. And relativity, I worked for it, I earned it, it's mine, I built it, I created it. That still doesn't mean that it cannot be taken away and that it won't be taken away. So what Venerable Raṭṭhapāla says is, fundamentally, from that ultimate point of view of life and death, pretty much, nothing can be taken away. Nothing can be taken with you. Everything will be taken away.
You can you're able to reevaluate your investments.
Exactly. Because you're not acting out of this assumption that you will live forever and that your possessions will carry on even after you die or something, my legacy and stuff like that. That becomes inconceivable. Certainly inconceivable as a motivator for action and and provider of ambition. That won't be possible, because ambition and action of that kind, it's basically always has to be rooted in passion.
And it makes things easier, doesn't it? That I'm only here for a little while. Do I need to have all these requisites? Do I have to have the most exquisite house? And
if the context is sustained, then life becomes easier. But sustaining the context is what's not easy. Or building it up, that's what's not easy. Because it's not natural. It's not natural to go against the grain of ownership and passion. So if you invest the effort to develop wisdom and that context, then life will be much easier. Why? Because you will be less able to suffer. Because you don't have so much passion in your mind that binds you to things gratuitously. So when they change, you will not be affected. That's the definition of peace.
Yeah, all that stress that a person goes to for protecting the wealth, all that insurance and
health,
medical aids.
Because the mind doesn't know anything other than the ownership of the senses, of the body, and everything else that has proliferated through that. My house, my family, my friends, my reputation, my name, my business, my savings, my this, all this.
Burdened by that need for security.
Exactly, all of that is burden.
While it's falling apart, you're trying to keep it going. But it's falling apart beyond you.
Yeah.
And the fourth summary: life in any world is incomplete, insatiable, the slave of craving.
There's no satisfaction really. It's just appeasing the hungry animal. You can only sort of suppress the hunger until it comes back, and that cannot end on that level. So hunger cannot end simply by providing food for it.
It's a constant consumption.
So exactly. So the point of the craving in life is not the satisfaction of its perpetuation of itself, not the satisfaction of itself. So the hunger perpetuates itself through eating. Because you ate, you get hungry again. and then you eat, and then you get hungry again. And there is no other
And it never
nature.
builds up.
There is no other reality to that. So same goes with the thirst of craving, the tanha. There is no, because it's a mental attitude towards scratching the itch. But it's the attitude that determines the desire, the craving, the insufficient, I want this, I don't want that. Itch in itself doesn't neither need scratching nor not scratching. It's just an itch. Hunger in itself does not need food. It's just hunger. It's just discomfort. But the mental attitude that sees the outcome of food as pleasurable is what's dependent on that, is what gives meaning to the hunger and keeps acting out of it. So same with the craving. Until you see feeling for what it is, painful feeling as painful feeling, nothing more, nothing less, agreeable feeling as agreeable feeling, nothing more, nothing less, and neutral feeling as neutral feeling, nothing more, nothing less, the attitude of mind infected with craving will be adding meaning to that through that further assumption, further need, further pressure, further thirst and hunger. And that is, in itself, like a vicious circle that perpetuates itself infinitely. That's why the life in itself, in any realm, wherever else it is, it's completely insatiable. Because in itself, it just provides a fuel for itself. In terms of craving, basically, when unpleasant feeling is present, stop trying to get rid of it. Because that's how you provide fuel for it. When the pleasant feeling is present, stop acting out of it for more of it, because that's how you provide fuel for that craving, for more of it.
And that, because pleasant feeling is just pleasant.
Exactly.
Feeling
in itself, doesn't matter
doesn't
how pressing an itch might be. The pressing side of an itch is your mental attitude. In itself, itch is an itch. It does not need a scratch.
Enough already.
It's enough already, yeah. It does not need a scratch. So that's what it's meant. Like for another hand, in the scene, there's just the scene. In the hurt, there's just the hurt, and so on. You could even say in the felt, there's just felt. In perceived, there's just perceived. There's nothing else. Because there are no more gratuitous assumptions in regard to that. So any mental pleasure or pain that arises on its own, in itself, is enough.
But it's never enough for me.
Well, exactly. It's never enough for the mind that's taking it as mine, that carries the assumption of more or less. More if it's pleasurable, the assumption of more immediate. When pleasure is present, the assumption of more of it is immediately there. When pain is present, the assumption of less is immediately there. And that's why it will never be enough. So that's why you're interfering with it, and that's why you provide fuel inadvertently, and that's why it's insatiable. It's insatiable because you created the notion of satiability. You remove the notion of satiability, it's completely enough in itself. It's not insatiable anymore. It never was.
So it's that idea that if I go after these feelings, I try to
going after these feelings already implies they're somehow not enough.
Yeah.
Or they're somehow too much.
I'm looking for
and that's your assumption. That's not the feeling part. That's your craving.
And to what end? I want completion.
I
want to feel.
That's always kind of that
whole.
Kind of assumption. I want to feel whole, but failing to understand that you are the one creating the division to begin with by acting out.
I want to feel stable.
Yeah. If you don't
safe.
act out, if you do allow ownership to dissipate and kind of evaporate, so if you truly experience letting go of things, then things are already sufficient. In the scene, there's just the scene. That's it. A whole picture. There is nothing to be insatiable there. And the only thing that there was insatiable there was your own attitude, basically, that you projected onto things being insufficient. But it was just your attitude gratuitously resisting or gratuitously welcoming those feelings that presented themselves, and thus made them insufficient and made them insatiable.